as a country, we need to figure out these elections. It used to be election day, and by the end of the night or the next morning, you had the results. Somehow this has become election season.
Welcome to the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott, a third-generation transportation professional, chairman of the Truckload Carriers Association, and founder and CEO of Load One. And me, your host, Brandon Baxter. We've spent more than 2 decades in the industry. We've experienced driver shortages, truck shortages, recessions, financial constraints, technological advancements, and legislation. Yeah, we've seen it all. This is trucking news for the drivers and professionals on the ground. This is opinion and insight from the inside. This is the State of the Industry podcast. Welcome to the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott. I'm your host, Brandon Baxter. As you know, this is a monthly series dedicated to discussions pertaining to the trucking industry and featuring commentary by the CEO of Load One and current TCA chairman, John Elliott. John, thanks so much for joining me again.
Thanks for having me back again, Brandon.
Absolutely. I mean, we're doing this thing again, although this time a little different setting. Last time we were together, literally together in Orlando. Talk about what's changed for you. Where are you now?
I'm back in Detroit, so the biggest change would be about 50 degrees of temperature, and from sunshine to cold and gray, and got our first snow coming down right now.
'Tis the season. Same here. I'm back up in Cleveland, which is my hometown, where I'm originally from. So left the sun and sand and the palm trees behind for, as you said, the gray, cloudy skies and the snow flurries. Could be worse, though. Could be Buffalo. This
is true. I can't think of much worse.
Oh, not right now. So, John, where we last left off, we were there in Orlando. We had our discussion, did our podcast, and you took off from there and you headed out to San Diego. What was going on out there in San Diego?
Yeah, well, when I finished up in Orlando, I was at the Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation. Tommy Rook's organization asked me to speak. Really good panel there. A lot of good people in the insurance business going through training and education and that as it related to trucking. Mm-hmm. And it's always nice to be able to cross the aisle, and understand the industry from the other side. And insurance is such a huge part. But yeah, like I said, I literally left there, jumped on a plane and headed to San Diego. Had the American Trucking Association. I'm an executive vice president of that organization. Mm-hmm. Had our annual meeting out there, which was really a really well-attended, great event. The Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg, was there, as well as Robin Hutchinson, the newly appointed FMCSA chair. So it really a really good event. Got to celebrate some wins in trucking, like the Rhode Island tolls, that were shot down. So, overall, it was a very well-attended, well-spoken event.
Good. And then from there, I believe you said you were up in Toronto with TCA recently, correct?
Yes, home for a little bit. Then literally just got back the other day. I was up in Toronto. TCA, we host, it was our 6th annual Bridging Border Barriers Conference. Okay. We try to bring together our Canadian members and our Canadian affiliates up there to discuss issues that pertain to cross-border and that affect that side of the border and really look at those issues from another perspective and try to focus on our Canadian members as well. About 10% of TCA's membership is Canadian on the carrier side. And then I'm not sure the percentage on the vendor side, but it's also a pretty decent number.
Okay. And if you don't mind, just to kind of piggyback off that, I'll put my recruiting hat on for a second. That's why it really behooves drivers to have that ability to cross the border, correct? I mean, that's especially when you're talking expedite freight.
I think so. I think I look at it as one more tool in the toolbox, whether it be hazmat, whether it be TWIC, whether it be ability to cross the border. The more things you have, the less limitations. That's more freight that can be offered to a driver. That's more possibilities. And that more possibilities generally equals a better result.
And when drivers are able to do that, obviously that puts a little bit more money in their pocket too, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like I said, and it's opportunities. It's keeping the wheels moving. I've had drivers tell me, well, For instance, I don't need 3 pallets on a van. I'm fine with 2. I don't get offered 3 pallet loads. I'm like, well, you don't get offered 3 pallet loads because they wouldn't fit on your vehicle. I said, I could buy 40-foot trailers and 95% of my loads would probably fit. But if 10% don't, I'll never know the 10% I missed and what that adds up to at the end of the year. So again, limiting yourself, whether it be where you operate or what certifications you carry or those kind of things, everything you do to limit yourself in the business only cuts down revenue opportunity in the big picture.
Interesting. Okay. With this current episode that we're recording, and we're currently recording episode 4. Most recently, we had the elections. Right, the election season is now. Well, we'd like to say it's over. I have a feeling at this point it's never over.
The never-ending story.
Exactly. And there's always a chapter to be written and another chapter to be read. But with that, obviously, there's a lot of trepidation in the country right now when it comes to the election process and what might come after that. Right, with the results, where does that leave the trucking industry currently, in your opinion?
I think as a country, we need to figure out these elections. It used to be election day, and by the end of the night or the next morning, you had the results. Somehow this has become election season, and that seems to go on for a month or two. I mean, we're a week and a half after the elections and still have states that are counting and not reporting yet. So if one state can do it, every state should be able to do it. I don't understand that. I think that needs to be standardized for the American people. And I think that
Sure.
helps restore faith in our elections. When you look at the outcomes, I mean, obviously there was not the red wave that was predicted, which was very interesting.
Right.
I think, a
lot of people were expecting that.
I think the economy and inflation and that, people believe that would be the driving force. And I think women's rights and some of those things perked up higher on the voting side than what they did on the poll side. I think we need to get it resolved, where the House and the Senate sits and that. And I think for whatever reason, and I don't understand this, but it's historically true, until elections are over, people tend to curtail spending and that. I mean, to me, if I need a refrigerator, it's not going to be the outcome of the election that makes me decide that. But
sure,
statistically, that's not how the polls work and say it works. So I think, businesses want to see stability. They want to see the election finished. It looks like we're going to have a mixed deal between the House and the Senate. Right. And I don't think that's bad. Maybe that'll help to force some compromise and force people to reach across the aisle and work on issues, like infrastructure and the economy and things that really should be common ground, national defense, our border, things like that. So I think if we can start to see some of that and people have a better feeling, I think that's good for consumer spending and the consumer pricing, inflation, and that. But again, we've got to do some things to try to bring this inflation down.
And it's interesting that you hit on inflation. And some of the discussions that I've heard with some other companies, transportation companies lately, has been concern of recession. And some people feel like we're already in a recession, or maybe there has been, statistics to state so. But then there are some who feel, no, we're not in a recession yet. Just wait, it's going to get worse. What are you feeling, or what are you hearing about that at all?
I don't think we've seen the worst of this yet. I think it's going to be a soft landing, but I think the first quarter is going to be the worst of it. I think, we're seeing inflation start to slow down. Some of the reports are a little better. I think a lot's going to depend on the central bank and what the Feds do.
Right.
If they curtail the rate, the next rate increase, I mean, we're all expecting another increase, but a 0.5 increase versus a 0.75, or even possibly maybe only a quarter point increase would really help things. And hopefully, I know they tried to fight this fire very hard, very fast with the rate increases.
Yeah.
Hopefully they slow the pace a little. The numbers help align, and it's more of a soft landing. Trucking tends to be a lead indicator. The trucking numbers have been soft the last few months if you look at the spot market versus the contract market and that. Now, ideally, though, trucking is a lead indicator. We'll come out of it. before the general economy, before people really realize that an uptick is starting to happen. So part of me thinks that trucking is already going through, I think it's going to be a 6-month downturn. And I think trucking is already 2 months into it.
Interesting. Is there a fear, or even a legitimate fear, because of an article that I had read the other day about potential for bankruptcies? And I think that it's, at least in what I read, I believe that it's not targeting, but the idea of the bankruptcies for certain trucking companies coming from the smaller carriers. But in your experience, and obviously, we came out of the COVID shutdown a year or two ago, and there were a lot of companies that fell off then. Is there a fear that could happen again because of the recession?
Absolutely. It's already starting to happen. It's a combination. You had what I'll call a COVID bubble, where business was high. The spot market was really high. So you saw a lot of independent owner operators or small fleets jump and become carriers.
Yes.
Believing that those rates were going to stay like that forever, and that they ran out and bought up equipment on the used market, incredibly overpriced.
Yeah.
Their fuel is very high. So the carrying costs of fuel are very high. Billing your customers waiting to get paid, the cost of that is up. The cost of money is up in general.
Yes.
The interest rates climbing the way they are. Businesses were used to running on an interest rate of 2, 3, 4%. Suddenly running on an interest rate of 7, 8, 9. A lot of them don't have that kind of margin to give.
That's a huge difference.
As the rates come back down, and the costs have not really softened at all. Insurance is the other one. So unfortunately, I think you're going to see a lot of small, mid-size, even small mid-size carriers that didn't manage properly or jumped too much during what they thought were good times. And again, it's a classic cycle, the culling of the herd. When people think good times are going to go forever, and they overspend and run with scissors and grow too fast. Slow and steady wins the race.
That's a great point. And if I can rewind back to something that you said about that, the buying up of those trucks, during the COVID bubble, what has that really done to trucking capacity over the last couple of years? Because I've talked with many people who, they've got carriers, they've got trucks on back order for 7, 8, 9 months.
Oh, 7, 8, 9 months is nothing. Right now, I look at like equipment wise, we're hoping to get a third of the replacement trailers that we wanted for this year. Truck slots are sold out for the whole year, and that, so the good thing in past, I'll call it trucking recessions, when things were good, like they were, as an industry, we tend to shoot ourselves in the foot a couple ways. We run out, we buy a lot more trucks, we expand, we do all these things. Well, the good part was during COVID, even though things were very good, a lot of people moved from carriers being fleet owners or owner operators to becoming motor carriers. But capacity overall was very unchanged. There was no equipment to get. Trucks are actually aging out slightly faster than what they're able to produce them right now. So we're looking at right now, if everything stayed the same with the build schedules that you're looking at from Freightliner and PACCAR and Volvo and that, they are going to struggle to keep up with just replacing the old units that are falling off. There's no room, at least in the next 18 months, citing short of a economic meltdown that changes the whole scene. But if things just even stay the way they are right now, we're 18 months minimum with no capacity gain with everything that's being built. Equipment's aging out. It has to be replaced. Those trade cycles got, unfortunately, dramatically thrown off during COVID.
Yeah. With that in mind, and in the past when I've worked with other carriers and even with Load One, obviously when you're looking to bring on owner operators, for example, most carriers, because of insurance, they have to have a certain truck age. Is there any leniency on that right now because of this?
Yeah, I don't think it's generally insurance. I think it's more safety departments making their personal preferences for CSA scores and that. It depends on the carrier. We've always been more concerned. We have our own maintenance facility, so we inspect the trucks twice a year. And that, I've seen trucks that are 2 years old that owner operators have just neglected and are in terrible shape. I've seen guys that have 7-year-old trucks that are shiny, standing like the day they bought them.
Yeah.
So age is an easy way to look at it, but it's not really the accurate way to look at it. A lot of companies just take the easy route and base it on age.
Okay, interesting. I know that again, with having done so in the past, working with recruiting and with drivers specifically, and I know it's been talked about ad nauseum, but the driver shortage, right? At least from any indication I've seen, it doesn't look like that's turning a corner anytime soon. With what's going on with the elections and with the potential for, as we already brought up, the bankruptcies, the recession. What does this do for drivers now? I mean, it just in a sense of wanting to drive for a carrier. I think a driver owner operator needs to be very smart or selective about who they choose to go to work for. Mm-hmm. I would definitely look at well-established, longer running companies with more history that have weathered economic storms before. Mm-hmm. The latest and greatest or flash in the pan companies have not been through maybe one storm, but not through multiples. Right. Unfortunately, that's what strengthens the steel. You go through experiences, you learn from them, good or bad. You weather those storms, and you know how to prepare for them a lot better, right. And you know how to manage. Managing during good times is one thing, but managing during bad times is a much harder and much more critical skill set, really. So I think they need to be smart. As far as driver shortage, I think what you're going to see is, a lot of these companies close. You're seeing the record number of motor carrier authorities be dropped in that and yes. given up or, were canceled out by the government. And you're going to see a lot of those drivers are going to migrate back to working for fleets or working for carriers. So I don't think that's going to shift it a lot. I think the biggest thing in the future, I think that would affect the driver shortage problem is going to be hair testing for drugs and alcohol. And that, that produces almost a sometimes 7 to 8 times to 10 times higher failure rate than what urine testing does. So the government keeps going back and forth on that. Health and Human Services, and between them and the FMCSA, pushing back and forth on mm-hmm. who's got the authority. Right now, that's in Health and Human Services hands, but it will definitely be interesting. There's a petition right now up on Capitol Hill that companies that do drug or do hair testing, mm-hmm. that even if they have to do urine testing as well, but they can choose to do hair testing, that they should be able to submit those results if they're negative to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, because it is a known knowledge of a failed test, even though it's not admissible as the only test. So we'll see how that plays out. But that could take a substantial amount of drivers off the road. Sure. I mean, now
which I don't want by any means, but on the other hand, we don't want drivers out there who are operating these commercial vehicles impaired.
No, exactly.
Our families are all on the road.
And I don't know that a lot of people take that into consideration because several states have already passed, legalized recreational marijuana. So what does that do for a driver that might be based out of that state? It's okay by them, but now, they may fail a hair test or they may not be able to qualify as a driver. I get it. And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I believe FMCSA would trump that, correct?
Yes.
Regardless of what happens in the state.
Yeah. Drivers are federally regulated, just like airline pilots. It doesn't matter what your local municipality, what your state rules or laws are for recreational use or medical use of those drugs. We're a federally regulated industry. We follow their federally regulated rules. That's the law of the land. Just like, one state can't have hours of service rules different than another, or a city can't have those different rules. That's a standardized across the board rule, regulations. It has to be that way.
The importance of that, and I believe you kind of alluded to it here a few moments ago, but the discussion that has been brought up about brokering, kind of flipping the switch just a little bit, but sticking with the FMCSA, the idea behind, what is a broker, what is an agent, right? Talk a little bit about that.
That is a real struggle. The infrastructure bill, one of the good things that was in it was it mandated the FMCSA to better define what a broker is and an agent, and specifically a dispatch service, because those seem to have popped up as a popular new way for people to. It's like the new Bitcoin or something for people to try to make money. But the FMCSA came out with their guidance just a few days ago on this. I read it 4 times slowly and still really had no idea what I was reading.
Okay, so it wasn't
unfortunately,
just me.
I think they answered a gray question with a bunch of gray questions. I know TCA, I read TIA, we're a member of them as well. A lot of organizations' responses to this, and I think no one is really satisfied with the results. As an industry, we need black and white answers. Under MAP 21, anyone who arranged for the transportation of freight was a broker, and you had that brokerage authority and the insurances and those guarantees in place. This just clouded it up even more. So hopefully this is just the first step. And there is a commentary period. Again, they're asking for comments. The FMCSA is to their guidance. And again, I think we don't want guidance. We want black and white rules. Yeah. And I think they know that this wasn't going to satisfy the industry, because the fact that you issue guidance, but then ask for commentary to the guidance is, I think, a little bit more unusual than how that normally plays out. So I don't think that story is done by any means.
I'm curious because I probably read the same thing that you did a couple times, and probably came away with the same questions in my own brain. Mike, who are the people who are doing the commenting? I mean, is it just the different organizations, or is it, can a driver submit their own comments on something?
Yeah, okay. Anyone can submit a comment, and and I think it's a good thing. Maybe we can put a link on the end of this podcast for it.
Sure.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, of organizations, whether it be TIA, ATA, TCA, OIDA, different organizations will give their opinions. I'm sure a lot of different brokers out there, carriers out there have given comments, agents, have given comments, and that, it depends. The government, they like speed limiters is a big one. I mean, the amount of comments got there.
That's right.
So it's open to anyone who wants to comment. I would just ask any driver to remember to try to be a professional driver and present a good logical statement when submitting a comment to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
Right.
So it helps us to maintain the image of the professional driver as it should be.
Hey, sorry to interrupt your podcast listening. Okay, actually, I'm not sorry. I honestly wanted to interrupt for just a couple moments and talk to you about John Elliott and Load One. Okay, look, John and I have known each other for years. We've worked together in some capacity over that frame of time. But honestly, right now, having the opportunity to host this podcast with him has been fantastic. And what's fantastic for you, the driver, the owner-operator, is an opportunity at Load One. That's right. This is an ad spot for Load One. They're currently recruiting for owner-operators. So if you've got a straight truck, you've got a tractor, you are a team, maybe you've got a sprinter, you want to run expedite, you want to run truckload, get in now. Get in while the getting's good here, because Load One's got great benefits that they offer you. Layover pay, paid moves. They've got a wonderful driver's lounge tailored specifically to the driver. And all you have to do is go to their website. It's load1.com. That's load, the number 1.com. Or you can apply directly at Expeditors Online, or go to justcdljobs.com. They've got their stuff plastered all over there. You click on the link, you fill out the application, and I promise you, driving with Load One is going to be the best decision that you've ever made. All right, now back to the podcast. We are heading into the holidays, right? This is our 4th episode. We're heading into Thanksgiving season. We've got Christmas around the corner. What's going on with Load One? What do you guys do as you're ramping up towards the end of the year? The holiday season comes in. We've talked before about Wreaths Across America.
Yeah, we're going to be participating again this year. We'll have trucks going to Arlington National Cemetery, the official convoy or escort to Arlington. Once again, this year, Load One has been given the extreme privilege of hauling all the ceremonial wreaths So when the convoy makes stops along the way, we have a team, Heather and Mike Deed, that are just wonderful people, have done it for years. They know it in and out. They prep the wreaths in advance before the next stop every time. As well, they'll carry certain wreaths on board, let's say to go to the Pentagon. One time we had to go over to, there was a giant one to go over. They had to break off and go to the Statue of Liberty, take the ferry over to Staten Island. Then they'll also haul the wreaths into Arlington that are placed at certain things like John F. Kennedy's grave, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, things like that. So we'll also have another 53-footer that arrives at Arlington as well for the big day. And as well, we support our Michigan National Cemetery here in Holly, Michigan, and haul into there as well. As a company, we also try to raise money to help put more wreaths on those tombstones because, it is a large financial burden to try to raise this money across the country to get it done. But, I'm really proud of our company, our people, and the part that we've been able to play with this charity for, I think, 15 years now.
15 years and still going strong.
Still going strong. In fact, the company will turn 20 here in the spring. So
That's right. We will be planning, with at least cake and streamers, right?
Yeah, at least cake. I'm not sure about streamers, but do cake.
With that said, I mean, obviously, getting into the holiday spirit. I think you mentioned, pretty soon you'll be heading south again. You're not going to be hanging around Detroit for the holidays, huh?
Yeah, I like to go I like to spend my holidays in the sunshine a little more than I do in the cold.
I can't say I blame you.
Something about sunshine and palm trees beats out snowmobiling for me anymore. Not like when I was young, but no, I mean we're coming into I think 2023 is going to be an interesting year. We're excited. We've got a lot of things going on at the company. We're finally finishing up or wrapping up remodeling our main facility. So that'll be exciting to get that done. But, we've got some great new people who've come on board, expanding our services, expanding our offerings. We're in a pretty strong growth mode, organically. And honestly, we're also looking for, merger and acquisition and organic growth, and we're going to hopefully have some good things to announce here in the beginning of 2023.
I love it. Kind of makes us want to wrap this year up with a bow and get into the new year, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited.
Good.
As a company, I think look back. I think we've been a face that's helped change the expedite industry. Over the last decade or almost 2 decades now, and speaking of the expedite industry over the last 2 decades, I would be remiss to not mention Lawrence McCord, who a lot of the viewers knew, who founded On Time Media and really was the guy who the Expedite Truck Show really was the guy that kicked that all off. I can remember meeting him for the first time. First time we displayed was at the Detroiter truck stop in Woodhaven when the show was outside in a truck stop parking lot. And we sponsored Joey Holiday to sing and to look how far the industry has come and to look how far we were no one in the industry at that time, but to look how far everything has come in that. But I would be remiss to mention his passing. Very sad loss for the expedite industry for sure.
I would agree with you. And John, to kind of tag along with what you said, the first time I had ever met Lawrence, I was, back when I was running, in the recruiting department back at Panther many years ago. And, he was the one that introduced me to On Time Media and what's brought me to where I am today. And I have to say, if it wasn't for Lawrence and his excitement for the industry and what he brought to it, I don't know that I would have, continued to keep popping up here as I've found myself.
Really, I mean, he definitely, for a guy who was on the outskirts of the industry per se, not being an expedite carrier,
right?
He definitely had a huge influence. And you look at like the shows and things they put together and how those things helped to shape the industry and change it, and gave opportunity to a lot of smaller carriers. And even for big carriers to be able to get people in there to learn about our industry and help to grow it. I mean, he definitely has left his stamp on the industry forever.
Yeah. Well, he's already been missed. And, knowing the impact that he's had on the industry, on this company itself, has been, it's been
terrible loss for the industry and especially for Debbie, his wife, and his family.
Absolutely. Our thoughts are with them as well. Well, John, not to end on that type of a note, but I definitely want to thank you again for your time. Before I let you go, I know we kind of talked about the things going on at Load One right now, but I hate to let you go without letting you say something to the drivers about why it's such a great place to be.
I'm probably a little biased, but I would say to drivers, you know what, if you're looking at making a change, and I think you need to be very smart about it. I think we're a very solid long-term company. We have an extremely large sales force of direct shippers, and that one of the largest fleets in the industry. Our technology is second to none. We have a great compensation package for our owner-operators and drivers. And you can look at our website, you can look at On Time Media, you can go to Facebook, you can do all those things. But I would really say, you know what, talk to a Load One driver. When you see one in a truck stop or somewhere, and ask them to show you the technology. Ask them how their experience is. Ask them how their experience is talking to dispatch and walking into dispatch and being able to see the people they work with and what that's been like for them. How accurate their pay is, how timely those things are. Like I said, have a conversation. Make the guy buy you a cup of coffee.
There you go. That sounds good. I mean, I've got mine with the official logo for the podcast here. But John, it's always a pleasure because hearing a lot about what you're bringing to the table, obviously yourself, but the company with Load One, a lot of pride in the organization, and drivers that I've worked with in the past that have driven for your company have always had those wonderful things to say. So again, anyone listening, watching the podcast, as John said, talk to a driver, get them to show you everything that's going on over at Load One, because you're going to put yourself in a good situation. So, John, anything else you'd like to add before we sign off this episode?
Not sure what date this actually airs, but I'll say Happy Thanksgiving. It may be after Thanksgiving, but I'll say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. That to everyone, depending on where this airs and or when people click the link to watch it. So again, I hope everyone stays safe. It is winter now hitting us pretty hard.
Yep.
The roads and the seasons are going to change here. So, slow down a little, be safe. I don't care how critical the freight is. Communicate with your company, no matter who you drive for.
Yeah.
Get there safe, get there sound, communicate it. And, no freight is worth someone getting hurt.
True story. So, John, happy Thanksgiving to you. I know we'll be doing our next episode probably right around Christmas. So we'll get back out there for the holidays. So thank you again for your time, as always.
Go Lions.
Go. That's right. Turducken. Are we doing the turducken this year?
Oh, yeah.
Save me a seat at the table.
All right. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us for the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott. I've been your host, Brandon Baxter. Join us again next month as John and I will continue the discussion, all topics transportation. And don't forget to check out expeditersonline.com and justcdljobs.com for access to all of the same jobs, over 150 carriers, including Load One, those who are looking for drivers right now. So until next time, this has been the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott. For more information on Load One and how to apply for one of their posted job opportunities, go to load1.com. That's load1.com. And as always, be sure to check out our show notes for more information regarding Load One, Expeditors Online, justcdljobs.com, and any other tidbits that were mentioned during our show. Until next time.